Alrighty. Today we got about 5 minutes till class. We're about 5 minutes till. Okay. We have our first student. Welcome. Criminology. That's today. But
Hello there.
Hey,
I just have this on Zoom and Equal, but what would you do?
I don't know. I'd sit in my office and feel lonely and
Could
depressed.
you do that? No, but could you do that when you're off?
I probably could, but I like seeing people. I like talking with people. Images on the screen's okay. I can do that. Oh, okay, there he is. But yeah, I'd prefer to see in person just because it's a little easier to communicate. I can tell by looking at it if a point gets across. It's a little hard for me to tell if a point gets across if I'm not looking at it.
Can you see the people that are on Zoom?
Not always. Sometimes I can't. I don't require that because I get worried about the privacy stuff. I mean, if I have you in a room somewhere on campus, I don't care. You know, that kind of thing. If you have, if computers mandated to be honest, like fine. I don't mind people watching me. I've heard far too many horror stories about so-and-so saw something in the background of someone else's screen and thought it was something that it wasn't. And the next, thing you know, a SWAT raid happens. And yeah, it's like, it was a BB gun in the background. That's a live story that happened after Zoom. That was up in the Northeast. Massive raid on the kid's house because he had a BB gun in the background and the teacher thought it was a real gun. And it's like, yeah, if you'd have kept your nose out of someone else's house, you wouldn't have had that problem where you'd had a whole bunch of people go in there and really put their lives in danger, safety. Because anytime you do that, that is super dangerous.
Yeah. I've not really ever been a big fan of Zoom. I guess I got off on the wrong
Yeah.
when I did it.
Well, it is one of those things that it's definitely a mixed bag. I mean, I just did this semester. I like the fact that I can make a class very, very easy to facilitate. But sometimes it is a difficult thing. Like, what was it? 2 classes ago? Maybe it's 3 classes ago. I had a whole class where I'm in there for 3 hours at night. I didn't know that I couldn't hear their audio. So I had a couple students who were trying to say stuff and it's not coming through. Whenever they chat stuff, it'd give me it'd pop up in that little chat screen that you can see. But there was no beep boop, like how it gave me the notice that somebody
checks.
Yeah. And so it's like, how am I supposed to? I can't see that's behind me most of the time. It's like I'm usually, and so I really do like being in person more, but.
I have a habit of going, and I was doing that, but I didn't mute my thing and the teacher kept stopping, they'd stop because they heard me say, cause I just do that. When I agree with something.
Yeah. My favorite stuff, that doesn't make any sense. And it's like,
She told me to stop doing that. She says, don't do that.
Yeah. Well, some people have flows too. Mine's scattered all over the place, so it doesn't really matter if someone interrupts me because I'll interrupt myself. You've probably seen that already.
Well, I kind of figured you kind of jump around a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, well, and that's just the way my mind works. It is scattered, and
you have a very quick mind.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I like to think of it like sort of like a train. It goes real fast, but only goes one direction, and it can get off rail real fast.
I'm kind of
Yeah. One bend too many or just a little too tight of a bend and that thing goes careening off and there's.
Well, I do have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's okay, in the syllabus, it has, how many points are there? Is there 800 or 1,000?
I'd have to look at the syllabus. It's probably 800 sounds about right.
Okay, because 800, and I figured that's what it adds up to.
Yeah, I probably just if there's some
sheet it says
1,000. I didn't add it up right. That's probably what it is then. So you got 400, 100, 2. So 4, 5, 6, 7, it should be 8, so I didn't upgrade that, update that.
But then another question I have,
Mm-hmm.
it's along those same lines. You're supposed to turn in your topic and
Yes,
theory.
yes.
It said 10 points. Now, how does that work?
That's gonna come out of the 100 for the term paper.
Okay. So
Yeah,
it'd be
wherever that's at, right here.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna split it up into first drafts, where half the points will come available that way. And then if you just make the changes that I suggest or whatever, that kind of stuff, it's like, there's the rest of your points, for that kind of thing. That being said, whenever I do that, if you don't use Word a lot, have you guys ever used track changes before? Okay.
I use Word.
Okay, I'll show you how you guys to use that, because that's one of those things that will really, really help you out as you edit anything, if you do any group projects, because then you can quickly see, okay, what changed since the last time I saw this kind of thing. But I'll show you how to work that stuff, because it's one where I can go in and make small changes to sentence structures and things like that to clarify thoughts. And once you start seeing how people do that, because there's the way you talk and the way you write, and people usually invert it whenever they talk, and it'll flow better. But when they go to write, it's like, okay, switch those things back, and stuff like that will get ironed out pretty quick. And you'll also see like the limits of what you can say in terms of like what you cite, because sometimes important distinct, like when you ask questions in class, if it's a broad question and a broad answer versus specific and specific answer. If you ask a broad question, you get a specific answer. What that means is, like for me, specific is what that means is I can't tell you enough about the general rule. I can tell you how it works in this one specific instance kind of thing. And that's the generally how that will work with this too, as it develops is, okay.
So what was that one called? Not Word. What's the other one?
So you got the big ones that we use, of course, Word. Track changes is an element of it that's, yeah, so here, I'll actually show you guys.
Because Word doesn't really change, things around. It may give you a little, suggestion, but it doesn't really go into a lot of.
Yeah, well, it won't help you with that so much, but what this is really good for is, and here I'll show you guys online, since this will be helpful for you all too, because if you ever work on something, you have your normal Word, and let's say okay, it is typing. The quick brown box jumped over the, I hope I spelled correctly.
Does the spelling and all that stuff.
Yeah, I actually flipped it. It's supposed to be red fox jumps over the lazy brown dog, right? Okay, the sentence that uses every letter. Move this real quick down here. You turn on track changes right here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and so what happens is you got simple markup all the way to all. I like the all markup. And so anything I write from here on out, it'll highlight and show me that it's different, right? And if I set simple, I won't see that it's changed. If I hit all, I will. And so what you'll see in there is you'll see, okay, maybe he went there and like, yeah, maybe this isn't the best word. The red fox, whatever, right? And you can see, as those things change, when you first get it, what you'll see is it looks something like that. When you go in here and you turn it on, you'll see it entirely. It's also really, really helpful because you can do, let's see, where is, there's one where you can compare documents. I'm trying to remember which one was, I thought it was under review. Yeah, it's right here. So you can take your original and whatever you sent out and, okay, let's overlap those two. And you literally say this document, and it'll combine the two, right? And you can see the changes. And so, yeah, well, that's how I track written work in papers and stuff. It's like, that's how I know if I've seen that you've seen what I put in there and if you've made those changes, that kind of thing. And so they're easy ways to do it, but what will help you guys is as it changes, seeing the form. That's one of those things, as we work through this class, I'll be showing you stuff in Word. I might show you some stuff in Excel in here a little bit. So that way you guys get the shape of it. And then in terms of big programs you'd want to use over time, the big ones are SPSS, because that's your stats program stuff. The other one's ArcGIS, because that's most of your mapping stuff. Both of those come up in this area of research all the time. It just depends on what you want to focus on. And so as you submit those topics, we'll iron that out and I'll start showing you some stuff. We need to do a review for exam 1. So I think we covered everything that I had listed out here that we need to talk about. We got through deterrence, rational choice theory. We talked about situational crime prevention? I think we did. And then we just needed to do the review because first exam is pretty easy. We only covered really one chapter that had an actual theory in it. And then, well, I shouldn't say it like that. One chapter was specifically focused to theory. The other chapters are sort of like laying the groundwork for it. So we'll go over those types of things. And then once we're done with that.
Is the test and the quiz kind of the same format, except you got one maybe?
Yeah. And so, yes. So the quizzes, there'll be 60 minutes and you know, yeah, however many attempts you want to get the points, right? The tests themselves, each question is worth 2 points, except for the essay, which is 10. So you have 45 multiple choice, 1 essay. The essay itself, there'll be a few topics and we'll talk about those in a second.
Say it's worth 10.
Yes. So it's not a huge amount, just, you know, give me a good paragraph on it. It's kind of what I look for to show me that you know something about it. You'll have 90 minutes to do it, so a little bit longer than standard class time. It is a one-shot go thing, though. You only get that one attempt at it, so make sure that you're ready for it before you start it. If you have technical issues, let me know. There's always something going on technical, you know, on the tech side. The biggest one that I have people that run into is you open up the test and you've got other windows open with Blackboard in it, whether it's other tabs or other complete windows. Be careful with that because what will happen, I run into this one probably 3 times a year. You got those open, you're taking the test. You open those up before you started the test. You time out in those. It logs you out before you submit the test. You can't submit the test. I see it because I'll see it's locked in progress and you don't have access to it anymore. I can clear those out and get you access back to it really fast, but you have to send me an email and let me know. That's probably the most common error I have people run into, so watch out for that one. Yeah, because that's the one that's most frustrating because it's like by the time they realize it's happened, they're done with the test, and then they've got no way to say what they've done. And there's nothing more frustrating than, hey, I've completed a whole bunch of work and now none of it's going to get recognized at all, and it's all just gone into a trash heap. It's like that sucks. Let's see. So that's how that will run. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any issues, let me know. Don't email me at 11. I'm going to do it midnight kind of thing and say, I need a little bit more time. That kind of stuff. I mean, it will remain open, but if you run into those, just finish out the test and let me know why. In terms of cleaning house, anything else? I'll at some point in the next, hopefully week, I'll get time to update our timeline for our schedule on the syllabus. My schedule's been horrible though, but I'll try to get that to where it's better aligned. But as of that, I think that gets us to the point where we can start this review. Okay, if I said recidivism, what is recidivism?
Repeat offender.
Yeah.
You ever seen that movie? Is it Cool Hand Luke? Is that in Cool Hand Luke?
For a long time since I've seen Cool Hand Luke. That one goes back a ways. I have seen it, but that one I'd have to go back like 20 years. Just the last time I watched it, because that one doesn't even get cycled very often. That's a good one. Yes, that's recidivism. Yes.
I don't know if recidivism.
Yeah, but that's exactly what it is. It's the fact that so many people have that cycle. They go right back into it when you re-enter. That is recidivism. You know what classical criminology is? If you're told it in a line is punishment should fit the crime. You know, you start dealing with proportionality. Let's see. The different views of society as outlined in the first chapter. Conflict, consensus, interactionist, legalist, all those different views they give you. You know, the consensus is it's about agreements, and that's how we define what's right and wrong. Conflict is it's the those in power controlling those without. You know, interactionist, so on and so forth. Yeah, we'll get into some racial interaction stuff. We'll get into that. Let's see. Individuals interact with various people, organizations, institutions, social norms as they mature and develop. This process is known as, some of these questions are easy. If you don't know if that's socialization out of the options given there. Yeah, that one would, yeah. So it's like, that one's pretty straightforward. You'll have some questions that are like that, where it's like process elimination should do it for you. If you talked about the school which studied poverty, let's see, what's it given here? Neighborhood conditions and its influence on crime rates. What are you talking about? You're talking about the Chicago school. You know, you start getting into that socialist organization stuff. Beccaria, anytime you see his name, think classical. Ooh, there's a section where it talks about the legitimate goals of criminal law. I didn't talk so much about those goals because they're covered in so many other courses. What do I want to tell you about that? The legitimate goals versus illegitimate goals. The intent there is the biggest thing. Legitimate goals do good things, less do not. Even retribution is a legitimate goal. But that's different than some of the things that it might list here. You should be able to identify that difference pretty easy. Let's see there. Talks a little bit about deviance. It talks about same-sex relationships in this. That's probably within that. Yeah, the Supreme Court and how they handled that. Basically, what they're trying to get across there is that, you know, there's been significant changes in those types of things. Well, the points at which they start to recognize that, but this kind of gets to that point. Declared that consenting acts between adults are not criminalized. Something I watched earlier about. I won't get into that. All right, so felony versus misdemeanor. Know what the differences are. Be able to classify them to a small degree. Like if I said, you know, armed robbery, what's that going to be? That kind of thing, right? You'll have that kind of thing. So a few questions about that might pop up. Know a little bit about the steps in the criminal justice process, right? You have everything from initial contact all the way through corrections. Some in that chapter will walk you some of those processes through as those decision points, because they will impact what we do in theory, and there are some of those measures that we take to identify whether we're doing what we think we're doing. If I said Sutherland, of course, later you'll identify him with learning theory. White collar crime is what he has the most ties to in these first chapters, so that's where he's got most of his stuff. Talk a little bit about sentencing in that first chapter. It looks like mandatory sentencing, that kind of stuff. Be familiar with those. I mean, in terms of sentencing structures, moving forward after this test, basically just need to know that there are different types and be familiar with where there are differences. Like one state will handle things one way, one state will handle another. That will really come up if you choose to research something, what states you focus on, if you're focusing on different states, that kind of thing, because that will make a huge difference. Is there anything else I need to say about that? Not really. Okay. The academic discipline of criminology uses the scientific method to study blank of criminal behavior. Yeah, basically everything about it. It gives you a bunch of options here. Basically, what you need to take from that is look at what the chapter does. First, it tells you about what it is in terms of trend lines, you know, how it actually exists. From there, it's you know, what is it doing? You know, what causes it, and how do we start to make, you know, ideally influence it in a better direction? So pretty straightforward stuff there. It'll talk a little bit about some of the different perspectives it mentions in those chapters. Be familiar with things like, if I said ecological forces, what kind of forces am I talking about? Those would be some of your environmental things like that. You need to be able to identify, if I said those types of environmentals, you know, what kind of environmental factors are we talking about? Here they'll talk about neighborhood conditions, stuff like that. If they're talking about internal forces, basically you start talking about what theories are going to be dealing with internal forces, that kind of stuff, your biological, your psych, yeah, that kind of stuff. Know what positivism is? Already talked about viewpoints. Ooh, eye for an eye. Yeah, know that. Yeah, that's the Code of Hammurabi. And know what that is, know what a precedent is. And Slinger. Care about that. That's from there. Critical criminology. What is it? Okay, so that's a little bit of that. It's related to conflict, not the same thing. That's the one where it's more, that's more Marxist related. Conflict will have it be about the conflict between cultures. Marxists will put them in hierarchy. This is power, this is not. This is your whatever your ruling class is, this one isn't, that kind of thing. That's the one that you'll see that anything that bases off of this got its ties in Marxism will do it like that. Whether you're talking about the different theories they talked in here about, I want to say they mentioned like liberal feminist theories or something like those are usually common ones, like leftist theories that they'll literally label that way. That's why they're doing it, is because it all has to do with that power dynamic, not necessarily just that there's that dynamic, it's that power elements of it, and that's sometimes a problem. Let's see. Roe versus Wade, you'll know. I don't need to tell you that one. Desistance and aging out. If we're talking about that from a biological perspective, what causes desistance and aging out? Yeah, you start looking at biological and those types of things. From there, who collects UCR data? Where would you go to find it? Here's where they mention racial threat hypothesis. As the African American population increases, so does the amount of social control directed at them. When we start talking about some of the whether you're dealing with the racial threat, there's another type of threat, symbolic threat. Anything where you're dealing with symbolic threat types of theories, I'm sure they'll have a section on it. We'll get into it a little bit more heavy. But basically what it is they're using those changes in populations to identify that new group is what is essentially threatening that area, that destabilizing that area. What else? We start talking about chronic offenders. What percent of the population do they make? In some of the studies they mentioned in there, always be mindful that it's a very low percentage of the population. From there, NCVS. What is the NCVS? What does it do? What's the difference between that and UCR and NIBRS? That kind of stuff. Human trafficking. What form of human trafficking is the most common? They'll mention it in terms of basically we start talking, I think they said intra-regional, something like that. Basically what they start talking is it's local level. The closer you are to home is where you'll find all the crime. It's one of the most amazing things to me, and I'll say this kind of aside and I'll get back into this, is people will take big crusades, like I want to end slavery off in this country and that kind of stuff, or I'm going to focus on these types of things. It's like slavery still exists. It's right here and in less than 100 miles.
So what's the difference between inter-regional and intra-regional?
Yeah, I think I'm going to say intra is what it is. It's intra-regional, so it's local. It moves. Intra. Intra is within, local is inter, so to have multiple regions. And so every time you get closer to home, that's where you get the bigger numbers. It's like, okay, so we have an unknown number of people who are being tracked in from the country from wherever, right? And traffic through the country, yes. Okay, we have those numbers who are actually tracked through the country. And so you have those two together kind of thing. You're gonna have bigger there in that local area. You're gonna find them there. I mean, it'd be like saying, if I said, sex crimes, if you looked at sex crimes, even the ones that they track at the county level, and you go just for this state and you look, you'll find that there's like a couple counties where all of them happen, because that's where all the people are. That's where all the opportunity is. That's how it's going to concentrate. And that's sort of the rule for everything. It's one of those things that it'll apply to people, it'll apply to places, it'll apply to crime types, it applies to everything. Yeah, I think that's enough range about that. I'll back into this one. It is interesting though. Just how that works, because it is one of those rules. So it's local, the closer it is to home, the lower level it is, numbers always increase. When you really, really delve into it. I mean, as you aggregate, the numbers will increase, yes, but not if you're dealing with a real problem. Real problems on the ground at the streets. Okay. You know what PTSD is? Adults versus non-adults, their crime rates, criminals versus non-criminals. And what are their victimization rates? You know, that overlap we were talking, familiar with that. The odds of being a victim, what does it do to your odds of being a criminal? The other direction, right? That one goes both ways. Some stuff about victims' rights movements and the effects of that, like offender registration laws, things of that nature. So be familiar with what I talk about with that. Next. What is a victimologist? That's focusing on that victim side. That. Okay. What's the relationship between schools and victimization?
Young males.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Causing trouble. Yeah. There's a whole lot of trouble in those packages. Yeah. And we put them all in one place. That'll do it. Okay. Routine activities theories. The book will talk about types of motivated offenders. When you get to the theory itself, it won't really speak to that, but the book will talk about it because it's one of the biggest issues with that theory. I'll give you classes of different types of people who are considered motivated offenders just by default. Be familiar with those. That's going to be a big part of that. When we're into the routine activities theory stuff, of course, know the three aspects of deterrence theory, know how it fits, you know, utilitarianism, routine activities theory, all the basically how it branches out, how we went through class, right? Deterrence theory, certainty, severity, celerity, routine activities theory, the motivated offender, the target, the guardianship being missing. Know the aspects that they outline that govern those, whether you're talking about place handlers, place handlers, offender managers, or maybe I flipped those two. You know, the target suitability aspects of the target that you look at, the acronym like CRAVE, things of that nature. All right. Bless you. Bless you. Okay, deviant places. What classifies a place as a deviant place? There's a small section in there.
Everything but I can tell you what it is.
Yeah. Rational choice theory. What is rational choice theory? When we start talking about that, what else do I want you to know about rational choice theory besides what's in here?
I don't think there's anything rational about it, but that's just my
Yeah, probably the biggest thing to take forward moving forward is that it's not rational. People are not rational. And if you have to stop and try to consider everything you don't know, no one can do that.
I think it's like the opposite way you think it is. I think it's irrational.
Oh, it is. Yeah, if you put that energy towards something positive, what would you be able to do? Okay. Here are the questions where they get in certainty, severity, and celerity. Diffusion, displacement, and see what else was it they mentioned. So diffusion of benefits, displacement, crime, and there's another one I can't think of. It's like as you start to address these things, you know, you can see is this actually going to have an effect on crime? Is it something that is going to do that? Is it going to be something where the effects that you have, they maybe affect more than what you're trying to in terms of greater number of crimes affected, decreased? Could be the same type of crime decreases in surrounding areas, or it could be just crime got up and it moved a block over. That last one would be displacement. Nothing actually changed, it just moved away. From there, according to rational choice approach, the decision to commit a crime is structured by, you know that. Yep, here's what I talk about: discouragement, diffusion, displacement, dispersion. There you go. Okay. Each person, no, what's that? Cost benefit analysis. Yeah, be familiar with see, they'd mentioned, was it restrictive and marginal, general and specific types of deterrents? Know what those are. So generals, everyone in general, specifics.
Can you go over that?
Yeah,
real quick?
yeah. Okay, so when you start dealing with that, general is everyone in the populations. Like, we have laws that have punishments attached. Specific is the punishments attached are going to be tailored to fit you specifically, that kind of thing. When you start getting into marginal, it's like, well, what real deterrent effect did it have? You know, this was a marginal effect kind of thing that it only been very, and then the restrictive. That's the one I'm drawing a blank on. What one was that? I wrote them out whenever I was thinking about them last class, but I have slept since then. I don't know. I'll have to leave you with the restrictive one. I can't remember. As for that, I don't know here. The threat of punishment can reduce but not eliminate crime, I guess is what they gave for restrictive. I'd have to go back and look at see specifically how that one works.
Oh, that's restrictive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, more about the actions. So it's about the fact that it did reduce but did not entirely eliminate. The marginal is about what degree the effect actually had in terms of benefit. Restrictive is like how the other side. Okay. Describe and analyze an example of deviant behavior that is becoming criminalized. That's essay number 1. That'd be one where you get to have some play with that one. Okay. Find something that was once, well, as this one's word, is on the verge of being criminalized. Something that was once acceptable is no longer. And if you don't like that, you can go the other way, I suppose, too. It's now acceptable, but it used to be criminalized. If you can't think of one that's on the verge, because the other way is a lot easier. The other way would be something like your marijuana laws. You know, it's like that stuff used to be very illegal. Now it's, if you can say you got a problem, the punishment you get is cut by like 70%, something like that. And that's just if you just say, I have an ailment, when you're getting arrested when you don't have a license. It's like, that's how that works. Really interesting stuff, but that's how society changes. See, so that's one. Describe and analyze an example of deviant behavior that's becoming criminalized. If you do have trouble with that one, though, and you can't think of one that way, do the opposite and just say something to that effect. And it's like, I'm not in trouble.
Well, are there things that they think criminal that are criminal? We trying to think of something that there is.
I can give you a good example.
Yeah.
I'm going to complain to a school board. You want an example for that one? That one's one where if I said that's going to be, there's politics involved now, and that's a social one too. It's also criminal. That one's be a very, very specific situation that identifies a number of issues that were happening there. It was Loudoun County about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago now. They'd had a person who was claiming to be, was male, was claiming to be female, so they gained access to rape victims, and they had raped more than one student. And they kept covering for this person because they were using that as their cover. And so what ended up happening is, parents who went and complained. They went and contacted the feds to have them investigated, and they did. And so it's like, that's one of those areas. Like this unhappiness, I should be able to vent towards you. Why am I now being tied up in this investigation? Right? That's one example of where you get some really serious stuff really quick, and I can point out a bunch of stuff like that. All right. Next up. According to the concepts of rational choice, what causes law violating behavior? That will take some time to think about. So make sure you take some time to think about that one if you get that one. The one after that one is patterns in crime rates seem to be affected by temporal and ecological factors. Identify and discuss. So those are things like how hot, cold, is it raining, what time of day, all of that kind of stuff, because it affects people's patterns, right? If it's rainy out, I'm not going to be out walking across people's sidewalks, get an opportunity to go up and, rifle through their stuff. Things like that. That has a term. What is meant by the term repeat victimization, and what factors are associated with repeat victimization? Okay, that's going to tie into that specific section where it talks about the victim offender overlap a little bit. There's also going to be, you tie into that one, you could tie into, there's going to be a whole bunch that should be talked about under some of the routine activity stuff, because those factors that the people make decisions on are going to be consistent. So the people who find themselves affected by the factors that criminals weigh will be affected multiple times for it, that kind of thing. In the actual spatial research, they have a whole genre of they call it near repeat victimization, because that's their hunting grounds. That's what people start identifying these areas as those basically kind of like hunting grounds. And with that, that's the last essay for this exam. Any questions? Guys feeling comfortable?
Did you cover I don't know if you can tell us exactly what the written one's gonna be, but can you give us a hint?
I just went through that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so those last 4 ones I went through, so it's yeah, I'll give you the general topics, because I don't,
Yeah,
when it comes to the exams, I look at exams like I look at any other test in the class. It's a good way to get you a grade in the class.
you just went down the test, basically the test.
Yeah. It's like, here are the different topics you need to be ready to talk about. It's deviant behaviors that are becoming criminalized, rational choice, what causes law-abiding behavior, what causes the temporal and ecological factors you see in crime patterns, and then the last one is what is repeat victimization, and what factors are associated with it, right? I look at tests and assignments in classes. They're a good way to test what you learn in the class. At some point in time, you will be done taking classes. And at that point in time, it's like, then some of those other things that I want you guys to work on, those things will matter more. So I'll show you things like, okay, let's stop and I'll show you this thing in Word, or I'll show you this thing in Excel, or I'll show you this thing in this other program. That lays the groundwork. If you want to pick it up and run with it, you can. Cool. All right. Well, we'll pick up with that next class. I'm going to call it a day because.
I got one more question.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have anything to do with this.
Okay.
It kind of has to do with the paper.
Yeah.
Do you want that topic to be something that's zeroed in on a certain like
Entirely.
like school shooting or something like that? Is it just on a broad topic or a narrow, or a focus?
You can go as broad or as focused as you want at this level. Stage is probably a better phrase. It's always difficult to narrow it down to what it is you actually want to delve into and what's available. It's a whole difficult process that in methods we talk about the fact it's when even as you're developing the project, you're having okay, I hit a new roadblock. Let's go back and revise this one thing we were planning, right? And so that's how this starts. Is it starts the conversation of, okay, these are the topics I'm interested in. Then it's okay, what available research exists, and what resources do we have where we can do something similar pretty quickly, right? To see, it's that way you get some experience. And you can see, okay, these are the steps that those people went through when they were writing this thing up to go publish it, right? You start practicing that. It's like whether you want to do that or not doesn't really matter. It's the time with handling the data, the time writing, the time handling these ideas that changes you.
You're just you're basically just researching.
Yeah. It's the very initial steps of starting a research project if you want that.
I know how to do history papers and I know how to do that, but this is a little different. There's a little bit.
Yes. And that's
a hard time getting a hand.
Well, that's part of this class is you have to get your handle on that, the body of literature, and the fact that the way that we talk about it is different than everything else.
It is different.
Everything in here is abstract. Everything in here is abstract. It's I'll talk with you about whatever factor they say is important, and then it's Okay, to actually get to that factor, I have to measure these three things, and then I have to do, some math involved to actually say, okay, these are the real numbers. They won't have you do the numbers in this class because you have to learn the theory side of it. And we can't have you all day long for 40 hours a week kind of thing. Because then if I had that, in short order, I'd have you, okay, there you go. Now you're off. That kind of thing. And so this is how we navigate that in this environment is you take the classes, you get the education that you want, but you work that other aspect where this is what I really want to focus on. You'll forge a path for that, and that path will take you through whatever level of education you need. It is that simple at times. You just have to find one that matters, that you can run with, and maybe that matters to others. That's part of that introduction, is making your case to other people. Like I could go on a little bit longer. I'll give you a couple more minutes about that. The first one for me was one that really solidified what I was learning. It was probably about 3 years after I started my graduate degree. We had a university thing that took place where a student was abducted, raped, and murdered, right? Yeah. Probably less than 100 yards from where I was in class, right? And there's probably several hundred people right there, just a couple hundred feet away, where she got abducted and murdered, like she got abducted from that scene, and later, all the rest. That became a research project. What the hell happened in some regard? Got to account for that specific situation. Then, okay, what else is everyone doing on campus? Where else are people moving? Where else are people at? What are they doing? Right? And so we started a project on that. And guess what? It will start fixing some things, make it a little bit safer, maybe. Can't fix that last one, but the next one's a little bit less likely to happen. And that's the whole point of all of this, right? Small improvements in society. That takes so much work from us at the individual level, at that small change. You might see it and you might not. And that's going to be after you put in maybe your work, that kind of thing. When you get to where you're doing that regularly, and then that's the chair you're looking for, there is no limit, right? It's who do you want to be your peer? Is it the person whose paper you're replicating? Is it the theorist who came 2 generations back? Is it the person who influenced the entire course of society 1,000 years ago, kind of thing? You just figure out where it is you want to do, what effect you want to have. And by God, you got the tools. They're all right there. They literally are. And so there's no limit to the impact you can have. There isn't. You just have to put in the legwork. And my God, that sometimes is the hardest part. Well, we'll get started and move 1 inch at a time. Cool.
Yeah.
First one's topic.
I'm having a hard time with the topic. It's just a theory.
Don't worry about the theory. If the
can-
theory, it's a conversation. And that's how it starts out. That's why I did it this way. It's like I'd come into class and be like, okay, tell me your topics and we can do it in class. But if I see it in the paper, it's a little bit more real to you, a little bit more real to me. And then when we come and talk about it, it's more concrete, more real again. You're dealing with that real versus the abstract. It is a difficult thing, but once we get into it, you'll be like, okay, I see it now.
Yeah, because by the end of the day, you just want us to give three topics or
theory.
your topic and the theory. So I'm having a hard time figuring out the theory.
Yeah, it's just, so long as you just give me a few ideas.
Okay.
This class is all about ideas. It's nothing but ideas.
I'm having a hard time putting the two together,
That's fun. If you can't, don't. You just put it on the paper and send it in. And then we'll come in and we'll talk about it. And that's what'll happen next. And then as we move into the theory that relates to you, I'll probably start keying into your specific stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we'll do. The main thing is that you'll have a general idea of what each of these theories are, and that you'll know the theory you used a lot better. Because what you'll find if you choose to run with it is that most people know their theory extremely well. All the rest of them, they've got a good handle on them, but when you get into the specifics, it's like, okay, I need to go read. And that's not a hard place to get into. And that's all you need to get into to be standing over here.
So when are you gonna put that test out?
I'll open that up probably in the next 3 or 4 hours. Yeah, so I've got it loaded up and ready to go. I just need to click make available. I guess I can do that right now.
Is this basically off the quiz, I'm sure?
Yeah, it's based off the same kinds of information. Yeah, and so here, make available.
I've looked at the quiz quite thoroughly.
There you go. It's available now. And it'll pull off the same things. So you'll get the same kinds of questions, same topic areas.
Yeah.
The essays will be new though.
Yes, Is there one or three?
You're just gonna get one of them. It'll be random though. So it'll be one of those.
Cause you covered three different things, so
Yeah.
it'll be one of those three. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
Cool. 1 week from today, midnight. So you got 1 week to do it. Yep.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah,
All
I won't be here, well, I might not be here Wednesday, cause I got jury duty tomorrow. So I don't know, I think.
Play it by ear.
About jury duty, I've always gotten out of it. I
Mhm.
had a job where I couldn't go. So do they, I mean, if there's a trial, you gotta stick around.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Well, but I don't know anything. Basic, if you want to go, call early. If you want to try to avoid, call late. That's probably the best thing I'd say. I would always call early because I wanted to see, because I was just so
Oh,
curious.
because I gotta go down there. I gotta go there.
Oh, if they're already called you in, then.
Yeah, they gave me a letter. I gotta.
Then,
copy of it
then your
if you
hands are tied to fate is what it
want.
is.
It depends if there's a trial.
Yeah, yeah. So it's if they have a trial and then if randomly you get selected out of the pool that they have available. So, yeah.
I mean.
Ooh, let's turn
they
this
don't
off.
make me
Bye, guys.
They don't make me sit there for